I followed Neuromancer with 2 more novels set in that particular future, but by then I was growing frustrated with the capitalized future. To me, those books were actually about using the toolkit of science fiction to discover what I could about the 1980s. So I wrote a novel called Virtual Light, which was set in 2006, which was then the very near future, and followed it up with 2 more novels, each set a few imaginary years later, in what was really my take on the 1990s. But it didn't seem to make any difference in how I was generally read. Lots of people assumed I was still writing about the capitalized future. I began to tell interviewers, somewhat testily, that I believed I could write a novel set in the present, our present, then, which would have exactly the affect of my supposed imaginary futures. Hadn't J.G. Ballard declared Earth to be the alien planet? Wasn't the future now? So I did. In 2001, I wrote a book called Pattern Recognition, my 7th novel. Given the events of 2001, I quickly found the material of the actual 21st century to be richer, stranger, more multiplex than any imaginary future, but still eminently susceptible, it seemed to me, to being unpacked with the toolkit of science fiction, complete with a workaday level of cognitive dissonance we now take utterly for granted. Zero History, my 9th novel, will be published this September, rounding out that 3rd set of 3 books. It's set in London and Paris last year in the wake of our global financial crisis. I wish I could tell you what it's about, but I haven't yet discovered my best likely story about that. That will come with reviews, audience, and bookseller feedback. And booksellers are especially helpful in that way. Along with however many interviews, these things will serve as a sort of oracle suggesting to me what it is I've been doing for the past couple of years. If pattern recognition was about the immediate psychic aftermath of 9/11 and Spook Country about the deep end of the Bush administration and the invasion of Iraq, I could say that Zero History is about the global financial crisis as some sort of nodal event. But that must be true of any 2010 novel with ambitions on the 2010 zeitgeist. But all 3 of these novels are also about that dawning recognition that the future, be it capital T tomorrow or just tomorrow Friday, just means more stuff, however peculiar and unexpected. A new quotidian, somebody's future, somebody else's past. But simply in terms of ingredients, it's about recent trends in the evolution of the psychology of luxury goods, crooked former special forces officers, corrupt military contractors, the wonderfully bizarre symbiotic relationship between designers of high-end snowboarding gear and manufacturers of military clothing, and the increasingly virtual nature of the global market. And I called it Zero History because one of the characters has had a decade go missing, 10 years in which he paid no taxes and had no credit cards. He meets a U.S. federal agent who tells him that that combination indicates to her that he hasn't been up to much good the past 10 years. But that quotidian now finds him, events find him, and he starts to acquire a history. And one assumes a credit rating and the need to pay taxes. And it's also the first book I've written in which anyone gets engaged to be married. Now, a book exists at the intersection of the author's subconscious and the reader's response. An author's career exists in the same way. A writer worries away at a jumble of thoughts, building them into a device that communicates, But the writer doesn't know what's been communicated until it's finally possible to see it communicated. And after 30 years, a writer looks back and sees a career of a certain shape, utterly unanticipated. More stuff. And it's a mysterious business, the writing of fiction, and I thank you all for making it possible.
That was William Gibson, ladies and gentlemen.
Or was it?
I have a copy of Zero History. I have not read it yet. I cannot wait to read it. I'm going to the Sasquatch Music Festival this weekend in Gorge, Washington. I'm going to walk around with an advanced copy of William Gibson's latest book. That always brings out the good mushrooms. So I'm very